Welcome to Unlocking the Metaverse. I'm Garrett Sloan, AdAge's senior technology reporter, and before we start, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the war in Ukraine. In our industries, we have seen some of the failings of social media and the internet at large. How these tools we take for granted also can be used in conflict and division through things like disinformation. Today, as we discuss an optimistic vision of the metaverse, let's also consider how to develop responsibly. Let's not repeat past bad behavior and re entrench failed policies in our next computing platforms. In a few moments, you are going to see me in a way no one ever has before, as a very poor approximation of myself in virtual reality. We are right now all party to the same big experiment: the metaverse, NFTs, Web3. There is a lot to dissect here, and that's why we are doing this event. Thank you for being with us and our co-presenting sponsor, Voice. Something either extremely profound is happening in the world of brands and marketing, or the metaverse is the next pets.com and GeoCities, speedrunning to an epic collapse. Either way, you aren't going to want to miss this. That's what I figure. Here's something. Case in point, just yesterday, and this is a glimpse into what it's like being a journalist now that every brand is doing metaverse and NFT projects. We get a lot of emails, and this one just from Almond Breeze. It was promoting an NFT called Ape Fuel, the official drink of the metaverse. And to me, that just summed up why we are here, unlocking the metaverse, to find out what the hell it means to be an official drink in the metaverse. Can you even drink in the metaverse? There are some clues about Almond Breeze's Ape Fuel, and I do not mean to call them out. It just is the one that's fresh in my mind. But it appears to be a nod to the Bored Apes Yacht Club, the NFT community that any brand would kill to even come close to attaining that level of popularity. Bored Apes NFTs sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars and could be the most recognizable NFT brand. The apes have drawn A-list celebrities. They have brand deals. They are creating media, music, and content. These characters are becoming an alternative identity for members, for their metaverse avatars. And just maybe avatars will need an official drink in virtual reality. And that drink could be Almond Breeze. It's also possible that they're all just drinking the Kool-Aid. Today, we are about to get into what it means to create NFT communities like Bored Apes and whether brands can build fandoms in the same way. We will talk about different conceptions of the metaverse, competing visions. We will discuss augmented reality with Snapchat and why they don't call it a metaverse. And we will discuss brand safety because there are dangers lurking. But first, here is an interview I conducted in Meta's Horizon workrooms. I put on a VR headset. I created the avatar. I went into a meeting with Meta's Nicola Mendelsohn. So I thank Nicola for joining me there. And this is pre-recorded. Before we get started, please feel free to leave questions and comments on our social channels, and we will try to get to them during the conversation. Also, don't forget to tell us who you are and where you're watching from. Roll the virtual tape.
Hi, I am Garrett Sloan, AdAge's senior technology reporter, and I'm with Nicola Mendelsohn, Meta's vice president of Global Business Group, and this is AdAge's special event, Unlocking the Metaverse. So, hi, Nicola. We are right now in Meta's Horizon workrooms. We're both wearing Quest devices from our respective locations. And we set this up before I realized you were even in New York, so we are in the same city. And you recently moved from London.
I did. And Garrett, it is so wonderful to host you here today and to have you here. And yes, I moved a couple of months ago from London to New York, and I am loving being part of this wonderful city and exploring it and getting to know the different communities here and the people here. It's fantastic fun.
We can tell by your accent you're not from New York originally.
No, I am not. I'm not at all.
Is this your first time living here?
It is, yeah. In fact, it's my first time living anywhere outside of the UK. So that makes it even more of an adventure and exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. New York obviously is a whole new world to explore, sort of like the metaverse.
Absolutely. I like the way you just did that, Garrett, how you slipped that one in, which is
That's
where we're talking about today.
that's my segue here, and it's also you moved here because of your new expanded role as global head of as head of global business group, and so with that in mind, you have a whole sort of new purview at Meta, huh? How's that going?
Yeah, very much so. Well, I'm thoroughly enjoying the job. I've been at Meta almost 9 years. I was running Europe, Middle East, and Africa for the company, and yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to step into this role, to be able to represent, the businesses all over the world that are using our platforms to reach the customers that matter to them. So yeah, it's certainly exciting.
What does the head of global business group do?
Well, many things. No two
Of course.
days look the same, which is why, I feel privileged to be able to take on this job at this time. But it's really sitting and, with our businesses that are large and small, understanding how the platforms are working for them, how we can inspire and educate in terms of the new products that we have. Meta is always coming out, as you know, Garrett. We're in one of our, new products right now, with the new products out there, and then making sure they're aware of things like, the work that we're doing on Reels, which is our fastest growing product that we have, which is short form video, or the solutions that we're doing on commerce or messaging. There's so many fantastic opportunities. And then also being a bit of a voice alongside so many here in terms of what those businesses are telling us back into, engineering as well. So it covers a wide variety of areas all over the world.
Absolutely. And that's why we wanted to talk today, because there's so much to get into. And I know it's a very fantastical setting we're in right now, but it's also in the real world a pretty serious time. And I know you've seen that happen at Meta with the invasion of Ukraine. There's a war, it's affecting people on the ground there, Europe, and businesses. So, I mean, everyone's affected by it. So I was actually going to open with that and see, I mean, you're from the United Kingdom, like you said, originally, so you know the area well. What are you sensing from back home, and what's happening right now?
So, I mean, I don't think there's anybody that's watching the events that are unfolding in the Ukraine, the war, as you say, in the invasion, and not feeling deeply affected by what's going on. And one of the things that we've been doing is to really been working very hard to ensure that all of our services are there and supporting the safety of the community and of the people on the ground. We created a special operations center that is literally working around the clock to respond to the different activities that is happening, and we're obviously monitoring, as many are, the situation. We've done things like create new safety devices where people can actively, on their profiles, lock in to be able, so that if somebody was coming on, wouldn't be able, like you normally can, to see the friends, the families, the lists, etc. And we've certainly had feedback from people directly there that really mattered, and that's important. We've seen very substantial amounts of money being raised on our platforms using the Facebook and Instagram donation tools, over $20 million to date, and that number increasing. Such is the breadth of community and solidarity that people feel around the world. From a Meta perspective, we've also made a commitment of a donation of $15 million, both in ad credits and in cash, to be able to support the NGOs on the ground, to be able to help and get the aid to the people that need it the most at this time. But there's so many things that are happening. We're seeing how groups are being used in Poland, for example. Over 300,000 people have joined a group to be able to help with the refugee situation, to direct people to, where they can get food, where they can get shelter, where they can get, medications and different things like that. So there's a lot going on, and it's, it's certainly a very tense and a serious situation.
Yeah, and there was certainly, like in Russia, they are shutting down services, so you can't even get into that country anymore with a lot of internet services, and Facebook was one of them. Are you trying to get up and running there? Would that be helpful, or are companies trying to get out of Russia and while still trying to remain services in Ukraine?
So I want to be really clear that it's not us that's restricting access to our services, and it is true that millions of ordinary Russians are going to find themselves cut off from a ton of reliable information and access to their communication with friends and families around the world. We're doing everything that we can to be able to restore our services so that they can be available to the people to get that access at this time. But some of those things can sometimes be beyond our control.
And then again, the whole situation, it does raise this sort of question about what we all missed about Russia for so long. We were just not recognizing how serious it could get, or a lot of people were ringing the alarm bells, but it's tough to say when the line is crossed. And now we see a line has sort of been crossed. And on the internet, there's been a challenge of dealing with, there's meddling, there's trolls, it's coming from Russia. Do you sense anything new within your organization where it's like, we have to even double down on what we've been doing, triple down?
Well, I think, Garrett, you and I have spoken before, and for a long time now, Meta has been taking extensive steps in order to fight the spread of misinformation on our services. And, specifically at the moment, as I said, we've set up a special operations center. And what we know is that misinformation isn't specific to one platform or to one region. It's complicated. And that in many ways needs a whole of society approach here. So that from our side means that we have dedicated native Russian speakers, we have dedicated Ukrainian speakers as well. They're on hand. They're looking at the emerging issues as soon as we become aware of them. So that's some of the things that we've been working on. And as I say, constantly monitoring the situation because it's changing.
And last on this, there's since services are being shut out of Russia, and it's not just, like we said, it's not just Facebook, Instagram, it's every service are seeing sort of diminishment of people coming, or internet users in Russia. Will that change the conversation at all? Are you studying like, what's happening to algorithms and what content gets amplified because some of the same people who were maybe bad actors might not have access anymore? Are you going to study what happens to your platforms and the internet?
Yeah, so we're looking at all of this in the round. And one of the things that we also do is to work with third-party fact checkers, and that's incredibly important. And, increasing obviously the capacity at this time in Russian-speaking and Ukrainian languages across the region, but actually across the world as well. I think that makes a difference, and that matters as well. And as you would expect, Garrett, we're constantly removing anything that violates our policies, or we're labeling things as false or misinformation if that's the case when the third-party fact checkers escalate and share those with us. So that's another piece that we're working on, and we're very vigilant to any new or emerging trends that might occur as a result of what we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely would, as it progresses, love to just see more about what we learn about how online behavior is evolving and what the discourse is like given the new dynamics online as well as the real world.
Yeah, and we share that, Garrett, as well in our community standards report. And Nick Clegg, when he fronted the report, it was just last week, talked very specifically about some of the things that we were doing and seeing in the situation on the ground in Ukraine and Russia.
Sure. Now, again, this is still related to the metaverse because we're going to be talking about what about here? We're going to be in this new world, and it's just an open, with an app ecosystem. You can go into video games, you can go into chat rooms. It reminded me a little of the early internet, which is something that you always, I think your CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has said this is going to be the next internet. So you're sort of seeing it evolve from the ground up. What do we do about making sure chats are safe and rooms you go into are safe and all this stuff? How do we build from the ground up safety here?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think you're right. In the past, what we've seen is that the scale and the speed with which technology has evolved has sometimes moved quicker than where the policymakers, could get around. And so one of the things that we think can be different this time. And one of the things that we're encouraging, because of course the metaverse is going to be built by so many different organizations, not just Meta, other businesses, individuals, companies, NGOs, etc., will come together and do this. So one of the things that we set out early on is a $50 million 2-year fund to be able to work with academics, civil society, to really think through some of those sorts of questions that you were just posing about what are the guardrails as we build together the worlds of the metaverse. What should those be? So we're already started that work, and I think it's really important that we start from the beginning, building with that in mind.
Sure. And with that in mind, you talk to brands all the time. That's, like we'd said at the top, that's part of your just job, really. And you got to sit with them. You have the client council with major brands on it.
Yeah.
What do you think of what you're telling them now about this space? What do they have to do? What do they have to know?
So I think everybody is very excited about what the promise, and I think people are also realistic about, the time frames that it's going to take before the metaverse is truly realized in the vision that Mark Zuckerberg set out at Connect back in October, some 5 to 10 years out. And I think sometimes people can think the metaverse is, well, it's just about VR, but actually it's a whole continuum of different experience that you can have, from a 2D phone call to how you work with augmented reality to virtual reality and more, and then to that promise of when we have those deep immersive worlds that will come. But there are things that can be being done today. And you know what's really interesting, Garrett? Last September, I was not having a single conversation with any CEO or CMO about the metaverse. In the last 3 months, it seems like so many different organizations now are working on their metaverse strategies. They're hiring ahead of metaverse. And I think that's great, because I think with all that, that energy going in, we can start to have the conversations as to what people can do. And we're seeing it already. The very early things is, we would say that from a meta perspective, do the things that we're doing well already today. Okay, so that is, we've got amazing AR products, AR ads. We've seen the likes of Walmart selling out on desks. Why? Because you can literally take a picture of the desk, see it in your room, direct from the ad, and then they don't get the returns and they sold out. Or we're seeing the different brands like Charlotte Tilbury and Sephora, where you can literally try on the makeup on your, put the eyeshadow on, put the lipstick on, the blusher, etc., see what it looks like, shop and buy. We're seeing live shopping and how creators will come together, and I think there's going to be so many new opportunities in terms of how brands and businesses can get involved, and the creation of whole new jobs that don't exist. I was talking earlier, and we were imagining a world like you and I created our avatars, and can I say you look very dashing in your blue outfit. And
much better in the virtual world, so feeling good.
Not at all, Garrett, but there's now over a quintillion different avatar versions that you can choose, and that we've been very thoughtful in terms of, and a lot of work gone into that. But also you can start to see, well, actually, if you're somebody that's very into fashion, actually maybe you would want every day to have a different outfit that you could be wearing, and maybe you might have a personal avatar stylist, and so on and so on. So we're already starting to see lots of brands moving in thinking about this space. But I always want to caution here that fully realized version is still 5 to 10 years out. But we've got to start building.
As I've been playing around with it a little bit, you can tell that interoperability word, where you're going from app to app. You can't quite take all your outfits or all your avatars. You might need a different look in each one, and it's not as just you walk in and it's the new you. You kind of have to set it up in each different room, depending on who the developer is.
Yeah, and how you might want to hang out with your friends at a concert might be very different to how you want to do a work meeting like this. So you and I did not rock up today with, pink and purple hair and, crazy clothes and all the rest of it. But maybe when we go out of an evening, we might fancy doing that. And so that we can have fun with that and do things in the metaverse that you're not able to do in the real world.
Absolutely. It does. It really does. It looks kind of cool from inside here where we are. I'm not sure even if this has a name, this location, but it's
Well, it was the workroom we created for you with the view of, we've got some nice, we've got the mountains. It could be Lake Geneva going on in the background there. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah, it is kind of nice. And now you have such a huge business outside of the metaverse already. Before the interview, I had to, for the 100th time, look up your ad revenue for years. It's $115 billion. So it's still a pretty strong old business. How do you change that to the metaverse? What do you do in terms of getting ads in here that is even comparable?
Yeah, so the way that we think about this, and it's been the way that we've always done everything from a meta perspective, is we always start and build for people first. That's the really important thing. And so the focus now is on building the foundational pieces, and bringing people into those experiences so that people feel comfortable with that. And over time, the creators and the developers will start to build much more meaningful and deeper experiences. And that's what we do in with the existing business today. We look at things like what we're doing with Reels. We've just announced, the rollout of that to 150 countries around the world, which is really exciting given the speed of which we're seeing Reels developing and being taken on by consumers. But also we've announced that we're also, doing the testing on monetization of Reels as well, and the ability for people to be able, one of the things we're testing is a sticker that'll be on the Reel that you can literally just click through and then go and buy the thing. And that's, the commerce side of all of this is really going to underpin a lot of the metaverse as well, which is exciting. And people are always looking for a frictionless experience, and that's what we're working towards. Is really exciting, which is that you see something, that you like it, you can discover it. Our platforms are such wonderful places to discover fantastic things, and for us to be able to connect brands with the consumers, that love the products. And so that's one of the things that we're testing with Reels right now, which is exciting.
And yes, I'm going to ask you about Reels even more and about augmented reality and creators. Now, is there anything you're seeing coming up, experimental programs that you're saying brands might be able to be interested in? Even if it's not an ad, there could be, some movie showing here or some concert to do, and you've already done some of that. But what's your take on what's coming maybe this year that could be experimental and interesting for these brands?
Well, I think there's a lot that's already very exciting. And the first thing that I would say to any CMO is if you're thinking about, you're wanting to know more, like jump in, try it, experience it, right? Go to a concert, there's a comedy store now that's been created in Horizon, which, you can, watch some amazing live comedy. If meditation's more your thing, there's some meditation programs and worlds that you can explore. Or, if you just want to go and play some games, I don't know if you played Beat Saber yet, Garrett, but it's a fantastic game, and you get a good old workout as you go along. And if fitness is your thing, then why not go with a trainer to Machu Picchu and work out together? You'll build up a sweat like you would in the real world. It can be really challenging. And again, it shows you that the things that perhaps, no, of course it's not possible that you and I go and have a training session right now in Machu Picchu, but it can be in the metaverse. So I would say be curious, go and try the things that are out there, because it will whet your appetite and your imagination as to things that will come, and that those people will also be a part of building.
And you're very good with your hands. I feel like, am I not moving my hands enough? Or
no, move your hands some more, Garrett. Come on, feel comfortable doing it. Give me a high five. Give me a high five. Yay!
So yeah, you've practiced, I feel like. Anyway, I got to get used to the controllers as well, because you use those and they're sort of like video game controllers. So are older people going to be able to catch on to this? Because you really have to learn.
Yeah, although as you and I with our hands now are not using our controllers, so this
right,
is hand.
Good point.
It's tracking our hand movement, which I just find amazing. The novelty of that hasn't gone away, and of course this is still very early days, and over time it's going to be even more easy to come in and to use the product. But I think this is pretty cool already as it is. I mean, the fact that it can track our hands as easily as this. very powerful.
Talk about experimental. Have you tried anything that has the haptic feedback where you could feel a little bit in the hand? Is there anything in the testing phase on that you've tried, or what, if you're allowed to say?
I've been at my homes in London and New York over the last couple of years, so I'm all in the Horizon worlds at the moment.
No secret labs in your new New York apartment. Now, are there interesting ad formats you could see in VR? What are they going to be? Are they just sort of sponsored apps, maybe a billboard, usual, or are you seeing things that could be innovative, or do you not want to just bring in the same old format?
So I think it's really early to be thinking about that. I think, when I look back on my, nearly over 30 years in the industry, for the first 20 years, there wasn't much innovation when it came to the ad formats, right? What I did for the first 10 years was pretty similar to what I did for the next 10 years. It was ads on TV, it was print ads. And then we saw, the explosion with the internet and the proliferation of new ad formats, which, we're still creating. Like you and I just talked already about one of the tests we're doing on Reels. That's a new ad product to be able to have a sticker on a Reel. And it's early days, but that's exciting. I think if the focus is always on creating the products and building the foundations for people first, then I think the new ways of how we'll advertise will come after that. But as I say, still very, very early days.
And yes, as you brought up Reels a few times, and we can like the short video format is such a big one. YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Snapchat has one. You have Reels on Instagram and Facebook. Is there? It's this short video where people are just able to consume it quickly, and they sort of get enthralled by it and consume more. Is there an analogous feature for the metaverse where you might be able to view these things in here or create the dance videos here? Is there something you can think about where a social experience like that might work?
Wow, I think there's so many different things that have the potential to work, and we're already seeing, that people coming in to watch things and share those experiences of watching together. I think, when it comes to video on the Meta platforms, it's already something that it's huge for us. People absolutely love it, and we're seeing that more than half the time currently spent on Facebook and Instagram is on video already, whether it's on the long form or it's on the short form, like things like Reels. So from our side, what it offers, I think, for brands and for marketeers is the opportunity to tell those wonderful, rich brand stories that people love to do and that consumers love to receive, and to be able to do it in new and exciting and innovative ways as well. So, creators also love to be able to use video and love to use Reels. And we know that we're already the home to the largest number of creators that are out there. So we want to keep, making sure that we can be a place where brands and creators can kind of come together and realize those opportunities in order to connect to the customer and sell more products.
Sure, creators are essential to the video space because you can encourage them, incentivize to help just create. You got cool videos, you're doing tricks, you're doing funny videos, you're doing serious videos. And the same is going to happen in VR because you can build worlds here. Is there a specific VR creator program where these are the types of next generation creators who are going to do the metaverse and build it?
So what we announced earlier in the year was $1 billion fund for creators to help them to work through the different ways to help them with their businesses as well. And we've said that what we want, that when they come onto the Meta platforms in particular, that creators, that we can be the very best place for creators to be able to realize their businesses and also their own economic aspirations as well. So that matters. And, over the coming months, we're going to continue to expand that program as well into more countries around the world. So I think it's a kind of watch this space. It's very much, it's something live that's happening even as we're speaking. And the more that I'm spending time also talking to creators, the more that, they share back in terms of the things that matter to them and the things that are working well. And we, as a company, we've always listened, we take the feedback, and then we build together.
And on that note, I mean, talking about creators, part of what companies need to do is encourage different kinds of creators, uh, BIPOC creators, women creators who are maybe traditionally have been underserved in certain parts of tech. So, and this is International Women's Week, which I know is an important week for you, as we've discussed ahead of the show. What do you think is going to help encourage women in the metaverse, and what are we going to be seeing from Facebook, Meta this year on that front?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you asked that, and it's such an important conversation to be having, and making sure that in the building of the metaverse that we're bringing and baking in diversity, equity, and inclusion right at the heart. That's really important. And so one of the things that's really encouraging to me, Garrett, is the fact that one of the things that we're seeing with our Spark AR Go production program that we have is that we're seeing a really significant number of the filters that are being created by women. So that's really a fantastic thing. To the earlier question that we were talking about, we want to make sure that when people are coming into the worlds, that, that they feel safe. You know how important safety is to us at Meta. So we're building products in early days, things like personal boundaries. We want people to feel that when they're in these sorts of spaces, that their personal boundaries can be protected. Now, of course, we can do that from, of course, allowing access to who can come into your space with you. But also, we have this product now called Personal Boundaries, that if people come too close to you, it will shut the other person down. So it's almost like an imaginary 4-foot space that's around you at all times. So it's really having very considered, conversations and being very deliberate very early on in terms of how we're thinking about what we build.
Because this can be a very intimate space. When you're inside of it, it can feel more real, which I think could make people more anxiety ridden, even if boundaries are crossed, or if they run into a troll who can be a little more aggressive.
Exactly, and that's why we've built that. We're building that in and have built that in from the get-go.
Sure. Now, before we do run out of time, because you've been kind to give us a half hour today, I was talking about talking about opportunities and emerging challenges in the metaverse. I was talking to someone else about brand safety, who's sort of compared it to Times Square. It's like, it's just a whole other world where brands have to think about safety the same way they might think of it on any major city square. But still, in new ways. How do you talk about brand safety with the brands in terms of what they need to think about when they're coming in here?
Yeah, so from a meta perspective, nothing is more important to us than the safety of the people that are using our platforms. I think the demonstration of that is the amount of money that we're putting into this area and the amount of resources. So, the fact that we spend over $5 billion a year, that we employ over 40,000 people that are thinking about brand safety and privacy, those things really, really matter. And also because of the investments that we're making in other areas like artificial intelligence, it's going to be a really important part of the building of the metaverse as well. So those are the things that we're doing to make sure that from a whole meta perspective, that all of our platforms will offer people a safe and a positive experience for them when they come on.
And before I do let you go, we've talked before, we've been through the COVID pandemic. You had an early booster shot because you immunocompromised is the way to put it, I think. I don't want to explain what your own ailment was, but how is that going? How's your health, and how is your COVID vaccination status? Are we able to be safe, even immunocompromised people?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. I'm well today. I have, and I'm very open about talking about this, Garrett. So
Sure.
I have an incurable blood cancer called follicular lymphoma, and unfortunately, I due to the treatments that I've had chemotherapy and immunotherapy. It has left me with the inability to respond to the vaccine. So I had 4 vaccines, none of them worked, but I am so grateful to the amazing scientists out there and also for organizations like the FDA for approving very quickly, albeit in a safe manner, other things that we can have like Evusheld. So for the first time in 2 years, I recently got some immunity to COVID, which means that I can start to go out a little bit more now, which is great being in New York City, that I can start to go out. I'm still being careful, but I do have immunity that I didn't have. And so one of the things that I've also done is to create a foundation called the Follicular Lymphoma Foundation. It's a charity, and its sole aim is for it not to exist. Why? Because I want us to find cure and cures in order that one day the hundreds of thousands of people that are living with this incurable cancer will be able to have cures and get on with living their life normally again.
That sounds good to me.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you, Nicola. And we've run out of time here at our Metaverse interview, so I really do appreciate it. It was a fascinating exploration of a place I've never been before, and it's really interesting to be close to people and do it this way. So thank you.
You do feel it, don't you? That sense of social presence is really real, right?
It is real. I'm here to tell you it's real.
Well, high five. Thanks, Garrett.
High five again.
See you later.
Bye. Take care.
Give us a wave.
Oh.
And we're back. I'm back. Our next panel is commerce in the metaverse, and welcoming right now is Ad Age reporter Erica Wheelis to conduct that panel. So let's bring her on.
Hey, Garrett.
Hi, Erica.
Very nice to see you. That was cool. It was nice to see you in the metaverse. I think the hand gestures are what make it for me. I talk with my hands all the time, so I'm kind of glad that it's not just people sitting. I'm glad we've got high fives in the metaverse.
Yeah, there are high fives in the metaverse. It's definitely, it's interesting. You're just sort of like right next to someone. Even doing Zoom is different, where it's more like it's a FaceTime call as a Zoom. But when you're in it, you really hear people like they're next to you, and you're sort of looking in the eye, and it can get really intimate. But some places you'll go into, and it's like you're a stranger, and there's a lot of strangers. So it's almost like being in real life. It was fun to play around in.
I liked your Times Square analogy too with brands. I think for someone from New York, yeah, that I get how that feels.
Exactly. So anyway, we're gonna have a good talk coming up, and I look forward to that. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everybody. Like Garrett said, I'm Erica Wheelis. I'm a technology reporter here at Ad Age, and welcome to our Commerce in the Metaverse panel. So many brands are thinking about how to translate themselves into the world of Web3, be that NFTs, gaming, or virtual goods, which is what we'll talk about today. Today on our panel to talk about how they have approached this, I have Rohena Hassan, lead producer at Bitsky, Tressie Lieberman, Vice President of Digital Marketing and Off-Premise at Chipotle, Denisha Lomax, Senior Vice President and Head of Media and National Paid Social Lead for Digitas North America, and David Rotter, Vice President of Global Agency Partnerships at Snap. Great to have you all here.
Great to be here.
Everyone.
Excited to be here.
A little different with no Oculus headset on, but we're gonna make it work. So I think for this panel, let's start with a basic question. Although I think it will be no surprise to you all or to our viewers that everybody will have a slightly different answer here. And Tressie, I want to start with you on this. Can you talk about how Chipotle is thinking about and defining the metaverse?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Metaverse has been an exciting journey for us over the last year in particular. It really started with social listening and understanding what people were saying about us on different platforms. And in that, what we started to notice is that the metaverse was very much like a social community. And that's how we've been thinking about it. Our whole strategy is to supercharge our super fans and expand that fandom. And we found that people were taking conversations, their real life conversations, and moving them into a virtual experience. And so we are very focused on the community there.
Okay, community. We're going to touch on that, and I want to come back to you later on what Chipotle did that. David, I want to come to you next. How does Snap think about it?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's good to be here with you all. Hello, fellow panelists. This won't surprise anybody out there listening. At Snap, we are really focused on augmented reality. Regardless, I guess, of what you call it. I think it's great that we're having these conversations. I think it's awesome that we're thinking about the future of immersive computing. At Snap, we think the future is somewhat here today. From day one, we've been thinking about and designing technology that really augments the real world. And we think this approach is super compelling. We also think it's just really practical and rewarding for businesses. AR doesn't require you to entirely shut yourself off from reality. It meets you where you are. It lets you live in the moment. And frankly, it just adds a lot of joy and a lot of utility to it. And so at Snap, we've been thinking about AR as this next really big shift in commuting. I mean, I got to give props. Just yesterday, we were recognized, Fast Company recognized Snap as the most innovative company of the year in augmented reality. And I think what's interesting about it is it was for the really practical uses for AR. So again, augmented reality, incredible technology that's just going to enable us to do so much in the future. And I love that we're here having this conversation about the future of computing.
Sounds good. I'm going to come back to you on AR later on. Denise, I want to come to you. Metaverse, what's going on?
Yes, love it. I too am very happy to be here. So excited to share and talk with everyone that's on the panel today. But for us at Digitas, we too like to think that the metaverse is very expansive. It definitely includes virtual reality where you can act and be as you would in your everyday real life. But that also includes something that Dave was talking about. So whether you're using AR or VR with partners and trying on a new product, or you're actually shopping and buying in that experience, or you're hanging with friends, gaming, or even thinking about working, we truly believe that there's everything for someone, but there's also a real opportunity to underline authenticity in the metaverse, as well as some DE&Is.
For sure. Rahenna, what about you? I'm interested for this because Bitsky has a little more of the technical back end here too.
Yeah, for Bitsky, the way we're thinking about the metaverse is these are all of these different experiences and worlds that we participate in. We can jump through them, right? As we've seen them, it could be those traditional video games that we, play on our consoles. It could be some of those more hybrid moments like David's talking about using AR. It's a space that gives us more room to really shape our identities, have that piece of ownership, and really engage and participate with each other, right? At the end of the day, the key piece is building something that has the flexibility and applications that are more widespread. So thinking about the utility of the virtual goods and the experiences we're creating, and the value for, the people that are actually experiencing it.
For sure. So clearly a wide range here, but probably, good for brands. There's a ton of ways to come into this. So there's clearly different levels of how to come into the metaverse. It could be AR lenses, it could be a Roblox event, which we'll touch on. But I want to start kind of small here to begin. So Denisha, I want to start with you. Brands already sell products. That's kind of the basis for some of them. But talk a little bit about social commerce. I think this is something more brands are into and familiar with. How is social commerce a building block for brands when thinking about the metaverse?
Yeah, I love that question so much because I actually think that social as a behavior is really the bridge, right? That opens the door for so many metaverse opportunities. When we think about live streaming, when we think about the evolution of shopping, and how creators are now able to kind of authentically host and showcase products that sell out in minutes, right? In a way that's never been done before. I think when we also consider some stats from eMarketer, we know that 29% of people in the US actually watch live streams, and 80% of the people will buy a product from a creator that's hosting a live stream. There's also this interesting element of playing back a live stream when you think about the shopping element. So there's incremental purchases that are actually happening after people shop and buy and engage and go back and watch. So I think social as a behavior and social shopping and buying has really laid the foundation for everything happening in the metaverse. The other interesting stat that I love to share is that 45% of purchases are happening on the social platforms. So it's really great to see that we can kind of lean in and take advantage of those behaviors that are happening from a commerce perspective and really start to infuse the virtual reality and the metaverse conversations and those type of activities underlining the baseline of social and social commerce.
I mean, so we're talking about social and the commerce piece. So David, I want to ask you this too. Like, I mean, this is Snap's big thing, talking about AR. So how do you think like social commerce as a building blocks? And I'm curious if there are like, are there any brands you think who have kind of really taken hold of this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what's been most exciting, I've been at Snap now for 3 years, and what I've seen is this transformation from AR being fun and playful to AR being utility, and AR helping businesses do a lot of different things, from learning more about products, exploring products. There's a ton of education happening in this space. And then, of course, shopping, trying on products, trying out products. And, I think that's just an incredibly exciting development. I've got 2 daughters, and I remember going into stores like Sephora and others and watching them try on stuff, maybe makeup that they shouldn't be trying on at their age, but trying stuff on, and knowing that somebody was doing that right before them. And I wonder if that'll ever go back. But I think what's exciting today is you can do that from the palm of your hand, and you can upload your entire catalog into a platform like Snap and enable someone to go and really try on. And the use case that I love talking about, it's a recent one, Ulta Beauty, who effectively used our catalog powered shopping lenses, AR lenses, where users can scroll through and try on as much as they want. And you see an incredible lift in sales. You see in this case, it was over 30 million product try-ons within a couple of weeks. And so I think that's a really exciting behavior that's happening not just in beauty, it's happening in apparel, it's happening with furniture, it's happening with auto, it's just happening across the board. It's something that I think we should be paying a close amount of attention to.
Absolutely. I know the intersection of the metaverse and beauty, I think, has been a really fascinating one to watch. How do you bring something so tactile into it? Tracy, I want to come back to you. I want to talk a little bit about the Chipotle burrito event that was held in Roblox late last year. You touched a little bit on this at the beginning, talking about like that you were already seeing some social activity happen there. Tell us a little bit more about that. What was it about Roblox that Chipotle like drew you to? What was it about Roblox that drew Chipotle to them?
Yeah, last year we were thinking about how to make our burrito experience digital in an engaging way, because I think everybody was really tired of virtual events at the time, and we knew it was going to be a digital experience. And it's something Chipotle's been doing for many years. And we took a step back and said, how could we get Gen Z to experience burrito in the right way? And Roblox is a platform that we have been looking at for a while. I mean, when it started with just listening there, and we saw that people were already using Chipotle in their avatar name, and they were already creating Chipotle themed experiences and virtual items. So we knew that we would be welcome there. We felt like we had a community of superfans there already. But when we thought about burrito, we felt like Roblox would allow us to take that event that has traditionally been coming into the restaurant and wearing a costume and make it way better. I mean, I was thinking about the metaverse being able to take something that happens in real life and, have all these different components. Like, yes, you can still go into the restaurant and pick a costume, but then you could leave the restaurant and go into a virtual maze and earn virtual items. And it would show we were able to take it to the next level. So I think it was a combination of scale, the community was there, and then also just knowing that we could do something really special.
I want to talk a little bit more about the virtual goods that players could win when they finished the maze. So some of them were like different costumes, like you said, to bring that in. But can you talk a little bit about where those ideas came from? Like what was the technical lift to get them like set up in Roblox?
Sure. I mean, it was a ton of working across the teams to think about how we would show up in an authentic way and trying to deeply understand what the Roblox community would be passionate about. And we knew that they loved virtual goods. And we also knew from understanding our fans that people really liked things that were a little wild on the Chipotle side. So we actually took things that had performed well in social posts that were items that didn't exist in real life, like napkin shorts. Our napkins are very popular, so we turned them into shorts. We had a foil hat. We had a dress made out of packaging. We made glasses out of forks. These all things that have worked in social, and then we moved them to be virtual items. We knew they would be coveted, and then we had them at the end of this virtual maze where you could claim them, and we changed out items every day to have some hype and exclusivity around making sure you would come back every day during the initial campaign. So, again, it was just kind of taking this learning of what's happening with our brand and in culture in our community and lighting it up within the Roblox world.
I love that. Taking something like very, very exclusive virtual items that you can't get in real life. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
Rohanna,
one more note about that is that you could actually then, take them with you. So once you claim a virtual item, it's part of your inventory on Roblox. So, you can see people in other Roblox experiences wearing their Chipotle fork glasses and foil bucket hat, which is pretty cool.
I can see it. Where did you get those? Absolutely. Rohanna, I want to turn to you here. So Bitsky, I know, does NFTs. You guys do the wallet integrations and things like that. Just maybe at a more high level, what do you talk to clients about as they're preparing for the metaverse? Like, as we've seen, there's a lot of different ways in. So like, I don't know, how do you kind of help them navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing to really think about it is, as brands, of course, revenue is a big driver, but I encourage brands to think about this space as more of a brand building and community building tool. So I think, the example of Chipotle, really leaning into what the community is already saying, and creating something of value and excitement there. I think that's really special. These experiences, whether it's NFTs or crypto, this is some of the first ways the consumers are really stepping into the space, or more officially where they feel like, oh yeah, I'm like, in a virtual world, or buying an NFT, or, experience like doing something with crypto. So a lot of the first few brands that are really stepping into it, we have a responsibility to really onboard people the right way, right? Being thoughtful. And so we want to work with brands in tandem with them to make it easy, not just for them to really understand the space, but also their audiences to really onboard into it, right? So thinking about that purchasing flow, how are they really experiencing these products? Sometimes setting up a wallet can be really hard, for newer people to the space. So with Bitsky, those are some of the things that we're thinking through, is how do we make it as easy as possible for the brand to really jump into the world? And then also the next step forward, which is the users themselves, right? And really kind of thinking about that. And the other piece that I really encourage brands to think about is there's no need to kind of reinvent the wheel or really jump into it and try to do what everyone else is doing. It's always important to start with your own existing audience. What are the things that they're already interested in? How do they gather around you and your brand? And that's what really should be informing the approach we should be taking. A really cool example we have done recently was with Valday Beauty, where their community is focused on sustainability and women's empowerment. So the thing that we did there was brought on some really amazing Latinx artists to create the NFTs themselves. From there, creating digital experiences within Decentraland where people could hang out with each other, learn from each other, as well as a series of panels, and then also being able to try on some of those beauty products. I know David mentioned how weird it can be to, that we go out into the world and try on other people's products, but really kind of bringing all of those things together and thinking about the experience for Valday Beauty's audience, not just, beauty in general or the metaverse in general.
That makes a lot of sense. You've touched on audience authenticity, and we're going to get to that in a second. I want to take a quick moment to give some shout outs to some folks that are watching. Thank you to Andrea from Atlanta, Eric from France, Idil from Turkey, and Isaac from Canada. We appreciate you all tuning in. A reminder to everybody that you can put questions and comments for our panelists in our social channel, and we will try to get them answered. Denisha, I want to come back to you. So I'm kind of curious from the social side, like what are some other platforms where brands could be experimenting with how they post products or how they sell?
Yes, I love that question. I think right now you can kind of see at first we started off with maybe more like a TikTok and Meta really being all about the posting and the product sharing and social buying. But we're really starting to see even platforms like Twitter kind of evolve and get into the social commerce space a lot, where the live streaming is being able to be hosted and you can purchase and buy directly from the brand's website. So I think it's very interesting to see all of the platforms kind of coming in together to play. But I do want to give a nod to what David was talking about a little bit with Snap, and just how we've also seen our clients kind of do a little bit more in that space when it comes to the AR and the VR. I love to talk, you mentioned Ulta, but I love to talk about client Sephora, who is really all about beauty empowerment and inclusivity, and just that virtual kind of trying on and using the camera as the way into the door to kind of truly see how eyeshadow or lip would look if you're doing it, and then you kind of get to purchase and buy, as well as the partnership with Vertebrae, right? Like really being able to enhance kind of that shopping and try on experience has really been great to see. And we've seen a lot of brand lift and brand association and purchase intent from some of the campaigns that we've run. So really getting in front of the Gen Z and millennial audiences with Snap from that AR product lens perspective, but also testing and learning with new platforms who are doing things like the Twitters and the Pinterest, as you really try to tie in that creator and shopping element.
Absolutely. That's a great segue, because David, I did want to ask, like, Snap AR, what advice do you give to brands who are trying to get into it or maybe haven't done it yet?
I think there are a couple of things that come to mind. One of them is just building on what Denisha was just saying. The ability to take technology, AR technology from Snap, from our camera products, and put that into your own products and have that live in your own apps is there. And I think that's just a trend we're going to continue to see. You'll open up other experiences, and AR will be present, whether it's Sephora or whether it's your favorite furniture store and you want to figure out what piece of furniture might look like in the corner of your apartment, in my case, or home. So I think that's one thing to watch for. I think the other aspect that I love talking about, if I was a marketer today, I'd be thinking about, how do I make sure that my entire catalog of products is readily available in AR? Every single product that you can try on, that you can try out, I'd make it available and ready to use on Snap, ready to use in AR. So I think that's really just a turnkey step that everyone could be doing today. And so those are the two that really come to mind.
Makes a lot of sense. Yes, try on is a big one. I know that there are, like, American Eagle has done jeans. I believe there's another brand that's done bags and changing out the colors. So absolutely, yes, big push to have everything up and running. Rohanna talked about this a little bit. Let's talk about authenticity. I think this is something that is, not even just the metaverse. I think we can all agree this is across the marketing strategy. We want to remain authentic. And Tressie, I actually want to start with you. How is Chipotle thinking about brand authenticity when it comes to virtual things? Because, it's food. It's not a bag. It's not something I can wear. So how did you guys translate that?
It was an interesting exercise for us because there isn't an obvious way to bring it to life, right? And you mentioned fashion. There are certain use cases that just make perfect sense. And I think that was a good constraint for us to think through as we looked at how we would show up in the metaverse. We wanted to do it in a way that felt unique to Chipotle. And that's really important in everything we do, that we are not able to replace our activation with another brand's logo and have it make sense. So again, just going back to the social listening, understanding our community, and then having a deep understanding of the right platforms where we wanted to be, like Roblox. So when the idea came, we were ready to move and we could move quickly. With us, as I mentioned, Burrito was that right activation because we felt like we had an environment that could be even more special than what we'd done in the past with the limitations of real life, that we could make it even cooler in the virtual world. And we made every single aspect of that experience unique to the brand, whether it was the costumes that you were picking. No other brand could do those. They were so unique to Chipotle. When you walked into the actual Chipotle and the experience, it was an exact replica of a Chipotle restaurant. Every, ingredient in the line, the team member engagement was just perfectly on tone. And then when you went through the burrito maze and had these virtual items that as I said, were inspired by popular activations we'd already done in social media. It was just thoughtfulness at every single step of the way. And, huge kudos to our team for sweating every detail and making sure it felt really special. And I think in doing that, it helped not only super fans connect with Chipotle, but we were able to teach new people who maybe didn't know the brand as well, what we're all about, and have them create a deeper connection with us.
Makes a lot of sense. I want to switch gears a little bit. Denisha, I want to come to you on this question. I know diversity is a big consideration for a lot of brands going into the metaverse, but can you give us your thoughts? Like, what's the importance of inclusion and diversity in this new space?
Yes. I love the question. I'm loving all these questions. But before I do, I just want to shout out the Roblox Chipotle situation, because as a fan of Chipotle and a mom of a son who loves to play Roblox, we'd love to see it. So try to say that was awesome. So I think as we think about the metaverse and DE&I, we really want to think about considerations for not just tech and things of that nature, but we really want to think about accessibility, and we want to think about community first principles as we think about the metaverse being different than what the world we currently live in is today. So how can we start to truly bring in, whether it's through Genie or Ready Player Me, where there's digital avatars, are they super inclusive? Like, are the shapes and the sizes and the skin tones? Are we also looking out for people who may be disabled, but are we doing it in a way that's not culturally appropriating any culture that wants to engage and wants to be involved? Are we truly listening to the community and making sure that the point of view from a brand and from agencies, right, isn't the first thing that's being led? It's truly from a community first standpoint. I think we all know what it looks like to live in systems and world that are truly driven by racism and systems of oppression. So how do we listen and learn and build and be part of a world and an environment that truly comes from a value-based and community-based perspective first? So I think, we're all kind of learning and we're all kind of getting in now. I wouldn't say anyone is doing it wrong, but I think these are just things that we need to think about as these worlds and these environments continue to evolve.
I think that's so true. And I hope it becomes a bright spot for the metaverse. It's a little bit of a blank slate. So can we take the things that we probably haven't achieved quite well in reality, and can we translate that into the virtual? Absolutely. We have a couple minutes left, so I have two questions. My last one will be for everybody, but Rohanna, I have a quick one for you before we get there. We've already kind of touched on this. We hear virtual goods, we think of like avatar skins or accessories, maybe fashion, but are there some other categories that you think can benefit from virtual commerce?
Yeah, I think those are some of the main ones right now. I think we'll certainly start to see a lot of those like hybrid experiences. So thinking about shopping in person, right? Since we're stepping into that. Music, I think, is going to be really interesting. How do we listen to music? How do we support artists? I think we'll start to see gaming shift a lot too, how commerce looks like in that space. I think gaming has been driving a lot of it already, and I think it'll continue to sort of see that innovation. And I think just a lot of the applications of the virtual goods will continue to grow. Right now we have some of those avatar skins or clothing. I think that'll shift soon. Our CEO loves to think about, if you're wearing a shirt and you're playing in a game, like how can you add more experience to it? And the more you play and the more points you have, like, can that level you up more and more, right? So I think we'll continue to see the applications of these virtual goods shift. Right now there's a subset, that's more useful for the mainstream, which is more direct shopping and informing those experiences. And I think there's the other aspect where it's more tech driven and innovation driven, where it's in the worlds and how we're kind of building the utility around those things.
For sure. Really quickly, we have a minute left, but I want to do this one. We're going to do a round robin. David, I'll start with you. What is one trend that you are keeping an eye on in the metaverse space?
I think it has to do with the potential for AR to help reduce returns in the future and really drive cost savings for businesses, but also I think in the environment. There's Returns are up an enormous amount when you compare to in-store returns. Online returns are something like 30 to 50%. It's like $3 billion worth of clothing returned in the last year. And so I think that AR has the potential to really help not just save money, but also help with the environment, because a lot of those returns end up in landfills. And I'm also just going to say thank you to Tressie, because we are having Chipotle burrito events every day in our household. So appreciate it.
I love all the Chipotle fans. Thank you.
Really quickly, I want to hit Denisha and Tressie. Denisha, one trend. What do you want?
Yes. So yesterday, our head of creative technology talked to us internally at Digitas about DAOs for the future of working. So SourceCred is one channel that he mentioned, our company that he mentioned yesterday, and I just want to shout him out because it's thinking about new ways of social algorithms rewarding creation over the way we kind of reward work today, where it's kind of like giving more work, but it's truly around decentralizing the way we work in the future of working. So shout out to Adam Bueller.
Very cool. I'm so sorry, Tressie, but we are out of time. Thank you again so much to our panelists, to Tressie, Denisha, Rohanna, and David. And now Studio 30 sits down with Voice, one of our sponsors. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Erica. That was great. I was actually scribbling down the trends, so we could have stayed a little longer. Maybe I can hit them up after that.
For sure. It's one of my favorite questions. It's always cool to see what's on their minds. What are they keeping an eye on?
That was a great panel. Thanks so much. Hi, I'm John Dioso, editor of Ad Age Studio 30. Every day it seems there's another news story about a big brand getting into NFTs or otherwise making moves into the metaverse. But NFTs have enormous potential value for small and medium-sized businesses too. Salam Zalatimo, CEO of Voice NFT, is here to demonstrate how everyone from small and challenger brands to micro and nano creator influencers can benefit from this new technology, and to share best practices for anyone looking to take their first steps in the metaverse. Salah, thank you for joining me.
John, thank you for having me.
Oh, great conversation going on so far, and I really want to get into this with you. So, we've heard a lot of great stuff already about brands and trends, et cetera. But what are the main benefits for these smaller businesses that we talked about, small, medium, and challenger brands that can gain from getting into NFTs?
Absolutely, and you're right. It's been quite an interesting and insightful conversation so far, and I think specifically when thinking about NFTs with relation to smaller and medium-sized brands and companies, it's really important, I think, to first just kind of step back and appreciate just kind of the excitement and what's been going on with NFTs in the past 12 to 24 months. I spent my entire career in media and worked across all different formats of media, from music to video to publishing, and I jumped into the blockchain space about a little over 2 years ago now, and the one thing that really stands out the most, and to me, the main reason why I think any brand and any company should really be getting involved in NFTs is just the general excitement in the space. It's so nice to be in a space that is just up and to the right always. It just feels like the rising tide is lifting all boats. Everyone in the space is having a ton of fun. There's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of discovery going on. And so I think just from a sheer brand alignment and maybe even a brand halo, getting involved with NFTs and blockchain at this point in time, especially this early in its life when it is such a positive and growing and glowing experience, I think there's a real benefit to just to brand enhancement and brand innovation just by getting involved. Now, we all know that a lot of the hype drove some brands and some companies to get involved early and quickly, with fairly limited success, I would say. And so it is really important that if you're going to align your brand around a new cutting edge technology, that you do it in a meaningful way, in a way that actually shows true utility and doesn't feel like a gimmick. And so the second part of NFTs that I think is still just now beginning to be appreciated by brands is the potential it has for engaging your audience and turning some of your already loyal audience into super fans and into ultra loyal audience members and customers. Because what NFTs enable us to do for the first time ever is it allows us to truly engage with our audience and to have them generating more value in and around your brands and being able to share that back with them. So this concept of digital ownership that's verifiable, that's authentic, that is truly transparent, enables a value generation that feels more collaborative with your audience. And for your audiences and your customers that are already really close to you, this really takes it to the next level. So the second benefit for any brands, especially small and medium ones, is to really supercharge their base, to really drive further engagement. This could be seen in the form of retention. This could be seen in the form of an increased share of wallet, which leads me to my third point, and the third reason why I think any and all brands, but especially the smaller challenger brands, should be getting into this, is that it will drive new revenue opportunities. Ultimately, an NFT is a digital good. It is an item that is created and produced and is then bought and sold and held and can appreciate. And so many of the companies that we talk to, when we sit down at the table, and one of the things that we really love to do at this stage is to sit down with brand managers and with account reps and with marketing teams to just brainstorm. And we do this quite frequently. And if anyone out there would like to do this with us, please feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to, because the possibilities are truly endless at this point. And thinking about how you can lay a foundation with something really engaging that will eventually ladder up to or evolve into a much more robust and rigorous revenue strategy is part of the magic here. And so ultimately, get in because it's fun. Try to drive new engagement and deeper engagement with your audience. And then eventually it'll lead to new revenue opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, in getting to the second part that I addressed in the intro, there's a leveling factor here between the smaller challenger brands and the bigger brands using NFTs and using the technology. But there's a nice parallel when you talk about influencers as well, when you talk about micro and nano influencers. Talk a little bit about that before we move on to the next bit.
I love that. I mean, the reason that one of the core principles here at Voice is that we support emerging creators. And the reason for that is because the blockchain technology broadly, and when it applies to the creative space, truly is a democratizing force. And so instead of having just a few superstars at the top that break through and can earn a living doing this, you actually open the doors to creators and micro influencers and nano influencers who can actually, if you're familiar with the idea of 1,000 true fans, can actually earn a living without a large audience if you're given a platform and a vehicle to doing that. And NFTs do that. And so there's a real ability now and an opportunity for small and medium brands to align themselves with small and medium influencers and creators, and really start to build a real deep sense of community that is aligned with your scale and your size and your positioning in the market.
Okay, so walk us through the process now. Let's pretend that I'm a challenger DTC or a nano influencer. I don't have the budget to hire an expert in crypto technology. So how do I do it?
It's a great question. So I will say, even myself, we have a company, we have about 50 employees, and many of them, we're building a platform. Many of them struggle to be able to get onto some of these other platforms and build NFTs or even release NFT projects, because it is very technical today. You do need to write custom code. You need to know what a smart contract is. Your customers need to know what self-custody is. They need to know what MetaMask and Coinbase and Kraken and all these different products and platforms are to be able to really engage. And so there's definite value in committing funds to working with an agency or working with a team of contractors to build the project from scratch. And many of the big ones that you see out in the world today are done that way. We at Voice, we've seen this, we've taken this as an opportunity. And so, like, as I mentioned, my career has been in media in general, and I have a lot of experience working with partners and working with brands. And what I know is that you guys are really, really busy. And so if we can make this a little bit easier and we can come to the table with a much more turnkey solution, then there could be real synergies there. And so we've built Voice to be a plug and play NFT platform where literally all you need is an email address, and you can be up and running in a matter of minutes. In fact, John, if you wouldn't mind, my team has put together a special NFT giveaway for your audience today. And if we have a QR code that if you wouldn't mind showing on screen. So anyone who is out there, if you hold up your phone to your camera to the screen right now and you scan that QR code, you will receive an NFT from Voice. It's a special limited edition NFT that we made for our friends here at AdAge and for our audience today, that actually represents a tree that we will plant on your behalf in the voice forest. And right now that's based in Madagascar. Because one of our core tenets is saving the environment. We believe that NFTs can and blockchain in general can make the world and the planet a better place. And so this NFT here, feel free to claim it, and you'll have a tree sapling in your honor planted in our forest. But the point here really is to see how simple this could be. You simply can scan a QR code, hit claim, give your email address, and boom, you're done. And if your audience is doing this, now you have a new connection with your audience permanently on a blockchain that is transparent and verifiable. And now taking your NFT strategy to the next level becomes that much easier because you've built your base with a free and compelling NFT giveaway.
So once you do this, do you have an account with Voice? Is it that simple with your email address and you just scan that code, you're in?
Right.
So if you're a
Exactly
creator, an influencer, and you are making things and you're a designer, you're the next Bored Ape. Can you just go in and immediately have an account, and you're all of a sudden, depending on what your algorithm is and who what brands may be looking for, you can be connected with those brands?
Absolutely. Our platform was built quite literally to feel like social media today. We wanted an NFT to feel like you're posting on Instagram. So we call it Web 2.5. We took a Web 2.0 interface, put it on a Web3 infrastructure, and made something really esoteric and technically complex easy for the masses. And we believe that once this hype bubble of NFTs in the world today fizzles or pops, we believe that the true value in NFTs will be working on platforms like Voice, where the NFTs are more about utility and more about engagement and less about kind of hype and speculation.
Got it. All right. Now, the previous panel talked about this a little bit, and we have a whole other panel coming up soon that's devoted to safety. So I don't want to step on their toes either, but I'd quickly like to get your perspective about any drawbacks of the technology. You referred before about planting trees with that great QR that you gave to our audience in Madagascar because you're very much into the environment. What are your recommendations for brands that want to get into NFTs but are concerned that the platform, say not your platform, but any other platform, may not reflect that brand's values?
That's a good question, John. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions that we get, and the main reason we get inbound calls is actually because of our corporate values. As we mentioned, we really believe in preserving the environment. We believe in empowering emerging creators from all walks of life, and we believe in making it very easy and low cost. And so it's important, and I would really recommend that all brands really focus and dig in on the values of whatever blockchain or NFT platform or partner that they're considering, because the platforms are very different and they have very different objectives, and those objectives kind of impact their values. And so I would say that one of the bigger risks of jumping into an NFT project or partnership too quickly is that you may find that partner doesn't hold the same values and priorities that you do as a brand. And a lot of the benefits that you may have gotten early on by just doing the NFT project could be undermined in the long run for that. And so, I think NFTs can really boost your brand, and if done well, can really boost your bottom line as well. And so, don't underestimate the potential variance that you're going to get across the different platforms.
All right, Solana, we just have a couple of minutes left, and I'd like to wrap up with some best practices that you'd recommend for small, medium, and challenger brands and creators who are just starting to get into NFTs with their marketing plans. Well,
the first thing I would say is what you want to prioritize is laying your NFT foundation. So, you have your existing audience, and then you have an existing crypto audience. And that overlap is likely very small because the crypto audience is still a small general pool. And so the first thing I would encourage you to do is to get as many of your existing audience into the NFT space as quickly as possible to then open up the doors for further evolution of your strategy. And so my recommendation is the first thing you should do with NFTs is give NFTs away. I really feel like going too quickly to the revenue and trying to sell archival content, ancillary content, branded content, swag, trying to sell NFTs at this stage in the game is actually a little bit too risky because of a lot of the unfortunate events that are happening around things called rug pulls and things that feel a little bit too gimmicky and that end up hurting your brand. I would focus first on giving value to your users and building you're establishing your base of NFT customers and users, and then from there build on top of it. So, for example, we're talking to publishers about their troves of archival content that they have that's historically been challenging to monetize. Well, we see an opportunity there for creating an NFT collectibles game where your audience can engage with your brand in a whole new way and start building collections of content to help drive retention. And then in the future, you can begin to layer on top of that new NFTs for sale. So, there's a lot of different ideas and a lot of different concepts that we've kicked around and talked to brands about that all focus on step one, giveaway, step two, engage and make it dynamic, and step three, add revenue on top of it.
Well, Salah, unfortunately, we're out of time. That was such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
John,
up next, thank you so much, Salah. Up next, my colleague, Ad Age reporter Brian Bonilla with How NFTs Make Communities. Take it away, Brian.
Thank you, John. And that was so interesting to end our conversation. So thank you for that. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this very interesting panel that we have for you. NFTs have quickly gone from just a buzzword to a necessity for almost every brand. According to data from Twitter released earlier this month, there have been 375 million tweets about NFTs since January 2021. Consumers are clearly interested in the space, but as we see more and more NFT drops, the question becomes, how can brands genuinely use NFTs to build communities and longevity for their brand? Joining me today are panelists that have been part of the NFT conversation and part of some of the most interesting NFT projects we have seen to date. I'd like to welcome Margarita Arriagada, founder of Valde Beauty, Esther Crawford, product lead for creators at Twitter, Katie Tedman, head of partnerships at Dapper Labs, and Spencer Gordon, VP of digital and draftline at Anheuser-Busch. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Hope everyone got here okay. Little Zoom joke. But yeah, thank you for joining me. And just to start, I think this is such a broad topic. I think a good starting point is to kind of get a sense of what the NFT landscape is right now. Katie, I know Dapper Labs was part of one of the kind of bigger projects in the NFT space early on with Top Shot and the NBA. How are things different now for brands looking to get into the space compared to when Top Shot kind of first launched?
I'll go all the way back to when we launched CryptoKitties, which really kind of set I think things in motion. When I think about what we were doing back then, the whole concept of blockchain was scary to brands, and it was something that we did a lot of education on, and we had to do a lot of explaining about. And I think today we're in an opposite world where everyone says NFTs need to be part of our digital strategy, and we're just not sure exactly what that part of the digital strategy is and what that means for the safety of our consumers and what that means for the integrity of our brand. But the marketplace went from something that was very niche and kind of very tech focused to start opening up to mainstream consumers. And we haven't really crossed that chasm yet into full mainstream adoption, but we're at a point where a much larger consumer base is aware of NFTs. People are really interested in decentralized finance from an investment perspective. And there's a huge amount of growth potential in NFTs for brands who enter that space conscientiously and, think about their consumers first.
I think that's conscientiously, that's the perfect word. I think, my next question is really about authenticity, right? Because like any space, gaming, any space, you want to approach it authentically. How does a brand what does a brand have to kind of ask itself or think about before even an NFT project is made or created? I don't know, Spencer, if you want to start off on that.
Yeah, I think, first of all, thank you, Brian. I think, different brands have different reasons for wanting to join Metaverse, go into cryptocurrency, go into NFTs. I think for me, the main consideration is you really need to understand the space. You need to make sure that you're not just there to make a quick buck, right? You have to be there for the long term. I think of it as something that you're able to give ownership, you're able to give utility, access to consumers. You're also able to kind of get into a space that's emerging, that is going to be growing more and more in the future. So from Anheuser-Busch perspective, we're looking at Metaverse as the same way that we looked at social media 10, 15 years ago, where you're seeing that kind of this ability to have a two-way dialogue, except now you can provide more access, more utility, and ownership to people. I think for us, being a big brand, this space in general, I don't think is the most, it hasn't historically been the most friendly to big institutions, right? It's decentralized. It's all about the community that's there. We didn't want to encroach on that. I think for us, we really look to say, how do we enter in a way that's appropriate, that would be respected, that shows that we want to help, support, and grow the community? We look to find partners that were already in the space, that were doing cool things, and support them. I think for us, that helped us build a lot of credibility. And then when we followed up with our own projects, I think we were already in the space. People saw it as an authentic move because we were already supporting artists, supporting gamers, supporting some of the other big projects that existed. And then we kind of followed suit and are already kind of weaved into that.
And, well, before my next question, I'd like to remind everyone watching that you can leave questions and comments on our social channels as this goes on, and maybe we'll get to ask our panelists your question. Esther, you're in an interesting position working for Twitter. You get to see, probably all the conversations about, what's going on. Have you noticed like what type of projects kind of, create buzz online, or what type of projects maybe don't, reach the authentic audience?
Well, one of the things we've seen is just an enormous spike in the conversation around NFTs. So an interesting stat is that in 2021, there were 17x more tweets about NFTs than working from home, in a time where a lot of people are working from home. In addition, some of the big conversation topics are around collaboration, NFT art, and then specific collections. Those are some of the big pieces of the public conversation that we see rising above. And we also see this emerging conversation around verified NFTs. And we think, well, we're probably part of the reason for that, because you might start noticing these hexagon-shaped avatars inside of your timeline, and that's because that's a new feature that we launched where you can actually verify ownership of an NFT. And we at Twitter have done this ourselves, using it across some of our own branded handles, such as Twitter Blue and our @Twitter. And we did that as part of our launch of that feature, and to kind of showcase collections. And it's a great way of collabing with artists in the space to give them, a visibility with your platform, or to collab with them on the launch of a project.
Yeah, sticking on that for a bit, Twitter has, with crypto tipping, you mentioned the NFT profile pictures. You guys have really been focusing on the creator side of things. Can you explain why that's kind of been such a big focus for Twitter, and why brands should care?
Yeah, I mean, we really see that Web3 is this new era where there's an opportunity for ownership to become more decentralized. And that philosophy has been at the core of Twitter from the very early days. We look at crypto and Web3 technologies as operating without global barriers, which is very similar to our own service. So we're excited to incorporate it into more of our products. And the reason we focused on creators first is because they have this utility, a need to get paid, a need to connect with their audience and in new and diverse ways. And so those are some of the reasons why we've started first with the creator focus.
And Spencer, were you gonna?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I love that point, because I think for me, Twitter is like an amazing platform for people to have a voice. I think one way that we look at this as, from some of our brands, Bud Light, Budweiser, is we have hundreds of thousands, millions of fans that follow us online. There's a lot of creators out there. And yes, now with blockchain and with NFTs, there's a forum for them to monetize their assets, but they still don't always have the biggest reach or the biggest platforms to reach those people. And I think that's one thing that brands can do and that we've done very well. So as I kind of mentioned, like the way that we've been able to get into space is like, maybe we buy an NFT from a creator and we make that our avatar or our profile picture. And then all of a sudden, the whole world that follows our brands, we touch, 2 billion or 3 billion consumers every single day with our products. They're starting to see some of these creators and some of the artwork on display. And then with that, the artwork gets more famous, more popular. Therefore, from a community perspective, you're helping build that audience, build that up. And then again, you're entering kind of cautiously as you're kind of then coming in with your own brand programs, your own assets, your own utility that you want to bring to life. So I think what Twitter's done has been absolutely instrumental. The same way that you trust brands that have that check mark, right, that are next to it, or the person or the politician or the news source. I think for us, that's been vital. I think in us getting comfortable with the space as well.
And are you talking about creators that are well known, or are you thinking like, you can give small creators even a platform?
Yeah, I think both, Brian. I think for us, like in the early days before we had launched our own projects, we did an early partnership with Zed Run. So really cool partnership we did with Stella Artois, where Zed Run's a horse racing game. You can watch it on Twitch. It's awesome to see. We were basically able to reskin some of the horses to be Stella Artois horses. We sponsor horse racing in a lot of places throughout the world. Like really clever, interesting way to come in. Gave a lot of visibility to the Zed Run team. Great partnership. I think the community went berserk over these horses. Another example is we saw Tom Sachs, who's a pretty well-known artist, right? Where we were able to kind of see his project. He launched a Tom Sachs Rocket Factory. He's leveraging a lot of US brands, really cool artwork that were there. And then basically based on the artwork that you would buy, he would make a kind of like a statue of a rocket for you that you would be able to go and receive. He made some with Budweiser. We loved it. We purchased one of them, made that our avatar to kind of pour some rocket fuel on his project. And I think we even had his first experiential event, like launch pad from our brewery in St. Louis after the fact, because he was so excited that we purchased one. And I think that helped pour some gas on his project overall. So that in that situation, one was a platform, one was a person. And then even more recently for International Women's Day, we actually purchased some famous art and some not famous art from some creators to kind of bring that to life for female creators from Stella Artois. So for me, I think really cool way. It can be unknown. It can be a platform. It can be a brand. It can be so many different things. And what I love about the space is that you can democratize it. There's the ability to get in touch with someone very easily, have two-way dialogue, purchase something, support one, promote it. I think it's really interesting and cool, both as an individual collector and also as a brand.
I would just say, Spencer, what you described is also like you're decentralizing your launches. And so you're taking the ethos of the space and like embodying that. And I think that's really powerful for a brand to do.
I totally agree.
And, Spencer, you touched on also the value that, you should add with your NFT project. And Margarita, something interesting that, Valde Beauty did was, you guys offered I think it was like a year's worth of free, a free lip shade, products that the owner of the NFT likes, access to, VIP chats. Could you explain why that was so important to have those offerings with the NFT collection, the Divine NFT collection?
Sure. Well, first of all, I launched a digital NFT, which is a physical product. I launched some vessels that were handmade, hand carved, super, very artisanal, if you will. There were numbered editions. And so my purpose was to usher the beauty consumer, the non-NFT consumer into the space. And so I wanted, really important for my brand was to figure out how do I add value and how do I get people to really begin to experience what an NFT is like. So we offered the digital artwork with as part of the entire package, and then we also offered a year's supply of, first of all the shades that are available in the Valde brand, and then a year's supply of your favorite shade. But the bigger purpose, I think everyone would agree, is really how do we add utility, how do we add value, and build a deeper relationship and a deeper connection with your customer, right? And so, for that, it may be having access to great content creators or makeup artists or other beauty founders that you can have, that you can really elevate the experience and dimensionalize the experience. and an NFT process allows us the ability to really build those values in there.
And Katie, what do you have any thoughts on the type of offerings? Because I know Top Shot and not just Top Shot, some of the other projects you guys work on have offerings with NFTs as well. What are the type of offerings that work? You have seen work so far.
Yeah, we start from a place of what do fans love, and I would encourage every brand to start in that place. It's not about what assets you have in the bank and can use. It's about what does the consumer base that you're trying to reach like. That may be the consumer base you already have and you want to engage them further, or it might be a consumer base that you haven't reached. I know there's been a lot of conversation about who NFT holders are and if they have different demographics or if there's something interesting about them that's interesting to brands. And I think where we started with Top Shot and NFL All Day and UFC Strike and all of the products that we have live right now, even really CryptoKitties, was what do consumers like? Back in 2017, 2018, it was pink cats. If you're engaging people on the internet, start with cats, it works. And then we moved on and we said, what do basketball fans love? And the thing that they love is the spectacular things that athletes do on the court every day. They love the feeling of being there, not necessarily physically, but just being there in the moment when something special happens. There are really strong communities that exist within the basketball community already, but there's also opportunities to connect in different ways. And we've seen that through NBA Top Shot. And so we started with what are fans going to love? And then you really can't go wrong, right? You start with something that you think the target group will be really interested in, then you're starting with something that they're already going to want to participate in. And then you can layer on top of it things like experiential and in real life experiences. And one of the things I love the most is there are communities of NBA Top Shot collectors now who hang out together without us interjecting. They're almost like old school tweet ups. But you can start to see how those communities can knit their own fabric. And I think the thing I would encourage brands to think about is you are not going to change consumer behavior unless they want that behavior to happen. And so think about the behavioral channels that you want to happen and then how you can facilitate those rather than here's something that we can do. And this is the box that we're going to deliver consumers, because when you give them an open box, they create things that you would never think about.
Katie, I just want to say the NBA Top Shot was the way that I came in to the crypto and the NFT space. And it was a big inspiration for us as we looked at kind of what to bring. And I think you're spot on. From the NBA side of things, people watch it to see the players, they watch it to see the games. I think from our side of things, being a beer company, it was about how do we put our product front and central? How do we talk about the way that this is intertwined with people's lives? We started with the project for Budweiser around our heritage collection because people think of the Clydesdales, they think of the brand being an American icon since 1876, and that's kind of how we got started in that realm. But to your point, the types of utility that we can offer can be very different. If you're on Top Shot, it might be your collector score, it might be your digital wallet, it might be a chance to have an entire set that's together. For us, we're linking it together with some experiential events. We're going to have merchandise that we give to people. You're going to be able to get access to some Budweiser concerts and venues and things, which we're excited about. So I definitely agree with you. I feel like number one, follow your consumer. Number two, make sure it's something that your brand can actually deliver, and that you're not encroaching on something that you can't just because it's a new space and there's a lot of interest in it.
Yeah, I would add
I would jump in and also say we see a lot of consumers hanging out in Twitter spaces, talking to each other. And we see brands capitalizing on those moments and jumping in and being part of conversations, either just on the fly or setting the conversations up themselves. And so that's a tool to consider using, because the folks who are doing that have this relatability with their audience that they don't otherwise have when you're just sort of posting content, but you're not hearing from the people behind the brand. And so that's an opportunity to engage in a more human, more direct way.
There's also
Okay.
another piece of that physical kind of tie-in that I think is interesting, where it's also that has the same core to it. It's not only what do I have that I can give away as an association, but what does the consumer want and what does it mean to them? What does it mean to them to be walking down the street with some kind of physical piece of apparel on, and what does that say about them? Which in sports is very easy to see the connection. I'm wearing, a Portland Trailblazers jersey. I'm a Brandon Roy fan because it says his name on my back. But what NFTs do is they do the reverse in a digital space, and then you can connect that back to physical. It creates this cycle of reinforcement of fandom, which is really interesting. And then like the glue that connects those pieces is almost that conversation that's happening on Twitter, where people are having those day-to-day conversations about the thing they care about.
We actually have a question for you, Spencer. It's from Chris on LinkedIn. How did Stella Artois measure its results?
Great question, Chris. I think for us, it's a combination. The most transparent and easiest one that you can look at is like the revenue that you're making from a program. For us, we're not in it to make money, right? We're in it to build our brand. So I think for me, we were looking at what's the community engagement? How are we received within the space overall? Were we getting PR around it? Were we able to kind of integrate it into our programs? And I think for me, it's a combination, right? I think it was a big success when we came in because we were able to show that a brand could do something successfully, enter a space, people were excited about it. And that gave us kind of the lens and the proof point for us to then bring through other brands and other projects. And I think for us, just for example, we had brands that have come in for Stella, Bud Light, and Budweiser. They all have different strategies. They've all entered in different ways. And to me, that was the key point from Stella that I think we learned, is that we can do it. We have to be thoughtful about how we do it. We need to make sure that we have the right objective by brand, and then each brand has to have a unique strategy. So I think it was a combination, but for me, definitely a success so far.
And, I wanted to ask you, Spencer, the Heritage Collection or even the, Bud Light Next NFTs, have you seen resales of those NFTs? And is that something that, you want as a brand or you don't want? Like, how do you kind of think about that?
It's interesting that you say that. I think we want them. We also want people to hold on to them. I think, a lot of NFT projects have a lot of volatility. I would say of the different drops we've done, some have gone up a lot in value. Some have gone down slightly in value. The trading activity has hit certain spikes where you've seen a lot of people enter right away and then kind of a downtick and then a big uptick again when we do something different. I think for anyone who holds our NFTs, we view them as digital collectibles. We view them as holding a lot of access and utility. I would recommend holding them. I think that they're really cool. Right now, I think about 6% of our NFTs on Bud Light and 6% of our NFTs for Budweiser are for sale. So I would say the vast majority of people are holding on to them. And I think excited for kind of what we have planned, what we have coming next, what we're communicating and giving to them as part of, becoming members in our community. So I think for us, less important than maybe an individual person or creator that's relying on the royalty or the secondary revenue to keep the project going. Again, for us, it's not about making a profit. It's about really building our brands and reaching new consumers. So I think more to come on that front. The trading volatility will be interesting to see as we launch more and more and more. But right now, it's actually been pretty low relative to the size of the drops and the size of the brands that we have.
I can jump in on some trading volatility stuff too. I think part of what I hope brands continue to think about is the utility both online and offline. And so when we run things like flash challenges in NBA Top Shot, and we're encouraging consumers to collect in different ways and to showcase their collections in different ways. And sometimes that requires going to the marketplace to find the pieces that you're missing. It creates an opportunity for consumers to access something that they couldn't have otherwise. We're not selling the moments that you're getting from a flash challenge. So it's something that you kind of have to participate in. But it also gives them an opportunity to showcase creativity and showcase fandom by not being so prescriptive about exactly what those things are. And I think that continued engagement loop can be online as well. It doesn't have to be offline. And that can drive marketplace activity, which drives interest from other people who are like, what's going on in that marketplace? The NBA Top Shot marketplace has almost done, I think we're nearing $1 billion US in marketplace transaction value. But we only take a tiny portion of that as a transaction fee. And so 95% of that value has been captured by consumers. And that really changes the relationship between a consumer and a brand, where it used to be, I just watch you on TV, or I just am a fan of your brand. And now I'm participating in this broader economy of your brand. And so there's something really interesting there that I think is super nascent. I say this all the time. This industry has been around for about a year, even though you read about it in the trades pretty much every day. It's so early on, and there's so much experimenting to be done, that I think the really great, really needle pushing stuff is not going to be following what's been done so far. It's going to be thinking outside that box about your consumers and how to engage them.
And switching gears a bit, Margarita, what I thought was really interesting about your project was you guys are in the beauty space, and I feel like that was a little untraditional. Could you speak on, and you spent, I think, was it 20 years as a chief merchant officer at Sephora? Why did you kind of think this was important for the beauty space to have? And do you think just any category should be open to NFTs? Like, how should brands think about that?
Well, first I have to correct. I spent 11 years at
11 years.
at
Sorry.
Sephora. It felt like 20, but it was 11. 20 in the beauty space for sure. For me, this space, I would tell you that my background was very much about forward thinking and what was next, and I was certainly involved at Sephora in exploring augmented reality and and the new apps, and ushering customers into the digital age. And so this felt really intuitive to me as a brand. And my brand is a non-conventional brand. It's an artistic brand. It happens to be a refillable lipstick concept, but it really is so much more about experience. And I really did not want to compete with another lipstick brand. Nobody needs another lipstick brand. So it's very much about expression and significance and purpose and mission based. And this space allows brands the opportunity for brand integration, for brand expansion, for expression. And because I come from an artistic space on how I created the brand, this just felt like a natural extension. And I've always, for people that have known me and the leadership roles that I have had, I've always been exploring, what's next, where is the consumer, where is the opportunity to evolve. And I created the brand really with the purpose of creating and figuring out that next formula, that next path, and the evolution, as opposed to taking a page from the past. And this is it. This is it. This is the evolution that I think can finally deliver a lot more value for brands, both for customers and for brands. And in beauty, is so important because it's such an unregulated space, right? That I think the blockchain, affords us the opportunity for more authenticity, for more transparency, and for the possibility of finally having an enhanced interactive brand and consumption experience, as well as build loyalty and brand trust. So I wanted to venture in, head in, and figure it out, and hopefully I'll share other people along.
And we only have a few minutes, so I want to leave this last question. How can brands start thinking about getting non-crypto people who are more casual about it and just maybe not as interested, or not super fans either of a brand? How can brands start trying to get those people? I don't know if Katie or even Esther, if you guys want to chime in.
Yeah, I think the question is always, what is the thing that people are going to care about? And I think part of the reason that, first of all, makeup, fashion are so like will have so much power in this space is that it's really about self-expression, and we live so much of our lives on the internet now that having this verifiable authenticity about self-expression is a perfect fit. In some ways, you know, fashion and beauty is actually a better fit than sports, even though we've kind of led the way with sports. And so I think when you think about the things that the kind of consumers you want interacting, think about the things they care about, not why they care about your brand, but why they care about the thing. So if they care about the way that they are portrayed on Twitter, on other social platforms, think about how to connect to that. Don't think about, I'm a lipstick brand, so it has to be a tube of lipstick NFT.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would just jump in and say that the question is also like, what can I do to make this experience more fun, entertaining, and inclusive? You know, NFTs as a topic is really like a finance related topic. And yet we see that, you know, it's not really just for finance pros or enthusiasts. It's really everyday people are tuning into more of those kinds of topics and conversations because they're just interested in seeing what's going on and they want to see themselves in the experience. And so that's one of the reasons why, you know, leaning into creators or finding folks who really represent a diverse set of your customer base is really important because they really, at the end of the day, want to see themselves in the experience.
Yeah. I'll offer an example that we actually had the launch event in the Metaverse, and I think it was the first beauty brand that launched had a launch party in the Metaverse, and it was a perfect way. We had 500 people, probably about 50 editors, beauty editors that attended, and we were able to usher a lot of people from the social, or fans from the social space that did not know anything about the space, and it was fun. It was interactive. We walked them through. It was very educational to really help them understand, what the space is really like, and it was fantastic.
Well, great. Well, I had so many more questions I wish I could ask all you guys, but that's our time for now. So I just want to thank you for joining me once again for this panel and this very great conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
And I'd like to welcome back Garrett, my colleague. Garrett Sloan's been doing a great job so far. Hey.
Thanks, Brian. Hey, what a panel.
I know. Well, I'll leave you to it.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to the NFT Communities panel. And you are watching Safetyverse. And now let me introduce this group of people to discuss what brand safety means in the metaverse and in the NFT communities. Before we get started, please feel free to leave questions, comments on our social channels, and we will try to get them during the conversation. Also, don't forget to tell us who you are and where you're watching from. So let me introduce the three people who are quite familiar with the metaverse and all the risks. First up, Avery Akineni, President, Vayner NFT.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Avery. Thanks for joining me. We have Laura Mignot, Global Chief Experiential Officer at VML YN Commerce. YNR Commerce.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Matthew Nazareth, CEO, The Sandbox USA.
Hi.
And Albert Thompson, Managing Director of Digital Innovation, Walton Isaacson. Thank you all.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Love that round of introductions, Garrett. Gets everybody pumped up. We're happy to be here.
One by one.
One by one. Slow but surely.
We got there. Now, this is going to be the last panel of the day. So we just left all the fire for our panel on brand safety because we know there's plenty to discuss. And we've had, I was able to start here with Laura, who I've spoken to before on this very subject. And she just started off with an interesting story of her own in the metaverse. And I wanted you to walk me through that first to start this off here, Laura. You have firsthand experience with NFT fraud. So what happened?
Right. And so thanks, Garrett. And of course, I kicked this off because I'm the one who got scammed. Thanks. But a few weeks ago, I was invited to participate in the drop for Meta Angels. And, it was female founded, had a really great Discord, and sounded fantastic. And, I'd been following along. And got the link to go ahead and connect my wallet, and got busy during the day, and so I couldn't get to it till later on in the afternoon. And somehow between the 6 hours, that link got spoofed. And so when I went to the link to connect my wallet, it was actually not connecting to Meta Angels, but actually a fraudulent account. So basically, I put in like $300 to buy Meta Angels NFT. No NFT showed up. I went back to the Discord and asked, and then uploaded the wallet address that I'd sent the money to, and lo and behold, it was not the correct address, and it was a fraudulent one. And then it turned out that I, along with a lot of many other well-intentioned people who wanted to support this really incredible project, ended up getting scammed by this. And so it is one of those things whereby, even though if you know what you're doing, and you're well versed in the subject, these types of issues whereby there are folks who are sending up trolls, sending up bots, and spoofing addresses can happen. So if you're a brand, you definitely got to be completely mindful of all of that and understand the risk that you take once you start working with regard to the Metaverse.
Exactly. When I was just looking into it and talking to the founders of that program, they had noted that this is just part of the new metaverse. There are scammers out there, like you might get phished in an email, or you could get anything. Your brand NFT could be sort of co-opted and put on an OpenSea type marketplace, and it's not from the real brand. There's all sorts of ways, and we know the internet is creative. So I was going to ask Avery that next, because you're here in the trenches with the brand. You've done Budweiser, you've done Pepsi, and so you know what they have to be looking for. What do you explain to them about the space they're getting into, and what do you think we should, what do we do to protect ourselves?
It's an exciting space, but it's the very, very early days of Web3. And similar to, the early days of Web 1 and Web 2, I think as people become accustomed to this new technology, there is an opportunity for people to trip a little bit on different scams. You all remember email phishing when that was a huge thing. But the way that we are thinking about Web3 and helping brands navigate this space is really owning their experiences two ways. So really owning their experiences and owning that communication. And secondarily, working with partners who really understand the space today. I think that authentic community connection is so incredibly important, both from building the support within the existing Web3 community, and secondarily working with the right partners to make sure that everything you're developing, from your smart contract to the way that you're communicating in your Discord, is all super secure. We've thought through all the things. Of course, we know the internet is very creative, as Garrett just mentioned, but I think there's a lot of ways that brands can be incredibly safe in this space by following sort of aligned partners who've done this before. And just like anything, someone could spoof a brand and create a fake Twitter account or a fake message, but just being extremely vigilant and mindful on that type of thing, and making sure that they address those as they pop up.
Absolutely. And Albert, not just in NFTs, but you and I have spoken about brand safety in the metaverse. It's an unending, chaotic place. And when I wrote a story about it, I called it the new Times Square of the 70s. So that was something you and I had workshopped together. And you're working with brands to scout places. And what do you think the challenge is with VR and bringing brands into it?
When I think about the metaverse, I get people to take a step back. Let's start with the parent company, which, these aren't necessarily my words, but it's gaming. So it's really incumbent upon gaming to get brand safety right, so the metaverse has a real shot. So when you think about the notion of sexism, racism, the thing about it's different in, say, the film industry, because that's the industry gaming is always pitted against. The governance in film is around actors is the media. It's the paparazzi. It's the public opinion. Everything is above the line. Nothing even stays below the line long enough. But in gaming, split below the line. So when you start to think about it in terms of who the watchdogs are, they're governing bodies, or they're just people voyeuristically or entities that have a stated value in reporting it. That doesn't exist as part of the inherent social infrastructure. So it lacks social governance. When you start thinking about brand safety, you really have to be working with stewards who can pull you in through the experience, because it's in a live stream sort of experience. It's not a flat static environment like our typical social networks or our content platform we spend a lot of our days on now. It's very much more relatable to it's sort of an infinite tour of something you were going through. So there's a lot of elements where there's lack of line of sight, and you really have to work with partners that can give you accurate line of sight, because that's what's going to need to really ensure the safety of the brands. When anyone can scout out an event, but when you start scouting out a 3-day virtual walkthrough, the average client just doesn't have 3 days to walk through a metaverse environment to make sure everything is safe. So you really have to be dealing with partners related to a controlled environment where certain things can exist and ultimately get sort of mitigated. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge is the leap of faith that needs to be taken amongst brands, and the need to have partners who can be sort of the if you want to say the watchdogs and really understand all the elements that would put a brand at risk. And that's just a massive conversation when you start to think about how does a brand start to unpack how to play safely in an environment where they just can't see easily visually everything that's taking place.
Yes, absolutely. And that gaming aspect can't be stated enough, is that there's that foundation of creating the gaming culture that if it translates to just what the metaverse becomes, then you're really dealing in a toxic sort of place, unfortunately. And now, Matthew, you're all familiar with this because you're building a metaverse that you're going to see how much you can need to exert control. The sandbox is this really interesting place that brands want to be in. So you're the type of person who will talk to brands and say, this is the setting you're in. This is what you might be able to do here. What do you think of the safeguards so far, and what brands are interested in doing and asking about in terms of safety?
So brands, they at the same time, they want to be free to, build, their experience and do whatever they want. But on the other hand, they also want to, make sure that the experience is safe for the users, is safe for the gamers. So the way we approach it at the Sandbox is to use either people or technology to make sure that the experience is safe. So we have, when you upload something to the Sandbox, you can make your own experience. We have people looking at what it is that you upload before it's published, for example. We are also using people for the chat when users are going into the brand's experience or the land or the brand. You can chat with others. So we have also people and technology, looking at what's happening, what people say. And the last part is we are building something which I think is very innovative. It's building some kind of social governance for safety. And the way it's going to work is that you have special moderators, part of the community, and we give them an incentive to report something that's inappropriate. And we give them also a penalty if they report something, falsely report something that was inappropriate. So the way it works is you have to, what we call it staking. So you put like a small amount of money into an escrow system. And then if you rightly report something that was unsafe, you get a little reward. And if you wrongly report something, you get a little penalty as well. So that's how we approach this. And it's very, very important for us.
That's interesting as a concept. Did you start doing that? Is it in the testing phase?
Yeah, it's testing and building phase, and we haven't seen anything like this so far. And we really want to give the right incentive for people to really police and report without being us, the company, but really rely on the community.
All right.
Decentralized brand safety help. I love that.
Yeah.
And Avery, are you doing, you've done NFTs, and obviously Vayner NFT is new. What's Vayner Metaverse? Is there a component? Because Sandbox, the Sandbox is NFT based. So you could see ways to create NFTs and go in the Sandbox.
Yeah, absolutely. Little sneak preview, Garrett. But we're actually, even considering from a naming perspective, making sure that we're including all the services that we're doing as Vayner NFT, which do include thinking about things like the metaverse and crypto wallet setups, all that great stuff. So we're big fans of what the Sandbox is building, and we're fortunate to be collaborating with them on a couple of different activations for brand partners and sort of more broadly.
Right, and then Albert, there's we've talked about a project where you're scouting locations in metaverse styles, and you think partnering with companies like Complex, who maybe are creating spaces that are going to be controlled. Is that a way forward? Are there partners that you can trust, and how do you bring brands into those sort of spaces?
Yeah, it all starts with like brand mentality. And one of the things that you and I talked about was like, look, brands will have to exist in 3 universes: in real life, on flat, static platforms, content sites, social networks, and in the metaverse. So think about how daunting that is for a brand to manage their mentality, their presence, their identity in 3 different universes. So when you start thinking about the metaverse as a first step, no different than even when brands started to present themselves at point of sale. They find a trusted partner. So if you're in retail, you look at a CVS, you look at a big box, a Lowe's, a Costco, your leading grocery store. If you go into metaverse, which is a totally different environment, you start to look at, okay, well, who has like a dedicated control community? Like Complex Land is really a 3-day metaverse experience. The great thing about it is, it's all about culture. It's only 3 days. The idea is it's a controlled environment that has a singular aim based on the Complex Manifesto editorially and where they sit at intersection of culture. So it's a safe inroads for a brand. And that's what brands need to look for as a first stepping stone. Instead of going into sort of an environment that's more like Wild Wild West, where there's so much going on. Someone who has a dedicated vision, it's timestamped, more of a narrow domain as relates to, because I think their own brand mentality as they size up, hey, should we be in this? It's very easy when you find a partner that focuses on a specific thing in the metaverse and you use it as an opportunity to trial the environment to see how should our brand start to show up in the future? What was the level of receptivity? Did we like the level of inclusion? Was it smart? Does it track? And again, I think brands will look at being something in the metaverse. They can't always be in real life on a static social network. It's kind of like saying, well, look, we're boring in person. We're boring in retail, but in the metaverse, we can be hot. We can be dynamic. But what does that look like? So I think it's incumbent upon brands to find easy points of entry. Same thing when people went into digital and they started looking at social networks and they said, okay, Facebook seems to be safe. So that's where we start before we look at environments like YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, and all the other ones. And I think same sort of due diligence needs to be exercised. So the brands lose their shirt and they're getting screenshotted around something unsavory that popped. And then it becomes sort of a major news story. So I think it's that calculated risk that they're really going to have to size up while they get very comfortable with their own identity is going to be in that universe.
Albert, when you scoped out some areas for a brand in anything metaverse or NFT or any sort of related there, have you uncovered anything where you said, oh, we can't be there? That's not a place for your brand.
It's interesting because you really got to get into each brand's identity. So I think there's a level of specificity for which a brand needs to show up. I mean, we're always prudent in saying, based upon your strategy, your customer profile, how people make decisions around you, this is not necessarily for you, which is totally fine. But we do the same thing when we do programmatic, when we look at social environments, because clients have asked us about Snapchat. And I'm like, you're not really a Snapchat brand. You're more of a Facebook proper brand between Facebook and Instagram. So we make the same decision. Same thing at the experiential level we do with Walton Isaacson. It's like, okay, these are the type of events where you have brand likeness and you should show up and present. And these are the events that really are kind of out of pocket unless you're going to evolve your brand identity and all of a sudden it is a space for you to play. So I think there will always be that notion of, I know that looks hot and sexy and everybody else is there. Maybe your competitor's there, but that's actually not you. So you're going to look at the agency world and media partners really need to double down in understanding their client at a greater level of intimacy because of what the metaverse requires, as well as the level of interaction engagement that can essentially take place. So you almost have to use a bit of a Web 2.0 world and then an experiential world. If those two merged and start to find the commonality of how you should and shouldn't play in the sandbox to really make decisions. I mean, look, the great thing is the metaverse almost feels infinite, which means there'd almost be infinite opportunity for brands to find a place to a place to a space to play in. Excuse me, but I think that's going to be important for them to say that.
And yeah, Laura, you heard the term experiential there. That's your specialty. And now you're at VMLY&R Commerce as a new job, and you've done the live events, so you know, thinking about safety in the real world. What's the difference in the metaverse when you start doing maybe more programs there, NFT projects, communities, and virtual reality?
Well, it's the same. It's going to be the same premise. Are you doing all of your due diligence around that event? So, does it make sense for you to be there? Two, if you're going to be there, these are the potential things you have to worry about. And three, at the end of the day, does it make sense for you to even do this? Like, are you ready for this? Is your brand actually going to make sense in this? Are we going to build something that's happening in the metaverse and then translates to a live experience, right? And unlocks a certain live event that we might be building? So, but at the end of the day, for a brand, you've got to start with, does this make sense for you today? And you can always, do a little bit of toe dipping and playing and places that you've done your due diligence around, where you've actually seen some actually good progress, and then think about taking that step in there. But it's very much allowing yourself to kind of do your homework first and providing our clients with as much information as we possibly can so they can make smart decisions that are calculated risks and then going forward.
And I also wanted to ask about diversity and inclusion, because in the real world, you see who's attending. You can see if there's an effort, at least, to be a diverse group or to bring people in who are of different backgrounds and just, show it's right there in real life. In the virtual world, it could be a unicorn and someone wearing an outfit and you have no idea who's there. What do you do to make sure that who you're associating with has the same value and level of diversity you're thinking of? And I can ask that to everyone.
Maybe I can chime in here. Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's a great provocation, Garrett. One of the amazing things about Web3 is that it's truly and like equalizing the playing field in a lot of ways for creators, for builders all across the world, all across different cultures, different genders, different ethnicities, all of that awesome stuff, right? And I think it's incumbent around the people who are putting these programs together to really foster that sense of inclusivity with the partners that they're pulling into this, because it's a whole new world and we've got the opportunity to really build it the way that we wish Web2 could have been built. So I know a lot of the folks in this panel have a real passion around this, and we have the same at Vayner NFT. And even if people are anonymous in this world of Web3, how can we solicit different perspectives and bring them in to foster that sense of inclusivity? I think that's a really amazing challenge and opportunity for all the folks in this group.
Yeah, I think you have an incredible opportunity, but you have to do it right, because you can have, best intentions can also lead to lots of trouble and problems. So I think it's incumbent upon everyone to figure out who your partners are and make sure they're actually living up to those supposed values that they claim they are for that particular that group, in terms of trying to be as diverse and inclusive as possible, because we see this with Web 2.0 all the time. So in anything that we do, it's heavily vetting the partners that you're working with, and are they backing up what they say and meaning it on the actions that they take.
Yeah, and I can say that I can give you an example. At the Sandbox, we just gave away $25 million to the World of Women Foundation to help minorities and women come on Web3, because right now the industry, let's face it, it's a lot of white guys, and I think we want a lot more diversity coming in for us and for the brands as well.
What's going to happen in the
pretty
Sandbox?
amazing.
Yes, I did. We put that in our Metaverse newsletter, which just launched 2 weeks ago, if anyone wants to sign up and try and follow us there. But not to plug that. But anyway, the Sandbox, it's going to be a whole world of different places people go. What are people going to be doing? Is it going to be just an unstructured, decentralized city world? And there are going to be districts where there are maybe, 4 different groups of people.
Yeah, we have the concept of district. You can think of the Sandbox maybe like a big city state. It's not as big as a country, but it's as big as a big city state, like maybe a Singapore, maybe, these kind of things. And what you're going to find, we think, is going to be almost everything you find in the real world. So obviously the root of the company, the DNA of the company is really into gaming. So you're going to have gaming experiences, and we have If you go right now on the sandbox.game website, you can already launch the game and you can see the type of experience you have. So we're talking about gaming, but eventually it's going to be more diverse and you're going to have social experiences. We are planning a concert with Snoop Dogg that's coming very soon. You're going to have shopping, you're going to have social experiences like dating maybe. Everything you see in the real life, I think you're going to end up seeing in the metaverse and inside the sandbox.
And has anyone been, I tried to go into VR for the start of this interview where I talked with Meta in their Horizon workrooms, and just playing around with it, I sensed how intimate it really is to go travel around in VR. It can kind of almost be jarring. You got like you're right next to total strangers in some settings. So it does feel like harassment, bullying, racism would be more visceral than just getting a tweet that's mean. Have any of you run into that sort of situation in a VR experience, or even just on regular online? How much do you see it being more hurtful in a VR world?
Yeah, I think, when you start to get into VR, because I did a Black Film Festival participation, I ended up running into someone who I haven't seen. Last time I saw him was on a panel, and it was 5 years ago. And I'm like, wow, I gotta get into VR, into a virtual environment to actually connect with you. And we were joking about it. And it's one of those things that it breeds a greater degree of intimacy that seems one step removed from them standing physically in front of me. So I think the sensory input in the metaverse, driven from VR, is what will make the infractions around things that are sexism or racism related that much more visceral. That's why it's more of a high stakes business than some other facets of gaming where it's not that sort of engaging. When we get into haptics, where you can obviously, as they say, give somebody a virtual hug or shake their hand, I mean, then we're really starting to accelerate that all the sensory appeal of what moves human beings. I think the one thing that's powerful about being in VR and the metaverse is the ability to read body language and body cues. But I think, look, the environments are going to have to set the rules of engagement from the beginning. So I like a lot of the stuff that Sandbox is doing, because, look, you need disclaimers. You need an IAB for the metaverse. I mean, you need everything. You need a double verify for the metaverse. I mean, you need probably even more in a modern era, because, look, if bias is in AI, bias is in everything. So the metaverse will have environments built with bias. People are going to have to deconstruct them from the beginning against all the different means of bias. And they're going to have to put that almost like in print, even if you can't enter the door. The same way you can't get into buildings without showing a vaccination. It's like you have to show people this will be an inclusive, friendly environment, and there will be repercussions for not adhering to those particular standards. So I think that's how blatant the metaverse has to be, to ensure the safety and to ensure that brands, i.e. the check writers, will actually show up. Because when you start thinking about CPG brands, a lot more conservative, banking and finance, these are businesses that have a zero tolerance because they're run by lawyers. And I think what people see is the entertainment brands playing in space, but the spending comes from your Unilevers, P&G of the world, and they have a very different standard about what is essentially going to be compliant.
Yeah, Matt, what brands are you talking to about coming in? We know Gucci, we know some luxury brands, maybe some cars. Are there any sort of beauty brands, CPG, Dove bars of soap? What kind of products can live in a metaverse that is waiting?
Yeah, I can't announce new partners that are coming soon, but I can tell you that. And I'm pretty sure the other panelists will confirm, every brand on earth is asking themselves this question: what is the metaverse? What is NFT? And what shall we do? So at least they have internal conversation about this. And most of them come to us and ask us, what can we do inside the sandbox? So we have an enormous amount of inbound, calls, and to the point where sometimes we can barely even manage it. So in the next few weeks and in the next few months, you'll see all types of brands. And we started with gaming. We're doing a lot with music, but we're talking to car makers. We're talking to financial institutions, beauty brands, everything. I think you'll see a very wide variety of brands coming inside the sandbox.
And when they build a place, there are certain access points. There are ways to make it exclusive in terms of, we only let people into our version if they have an NFT or if they have something that's...
Yeah, you can get an experience by an NFT, and you can decide to gate it, only for your LAN can be completely open, but you can say like, I don't know, Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. we privatize it, and it's only available for, certain people who have this kind of NFT, like a membership pass, for example. So you can really, as a brand, you can choose how you want to do that.
So we're almost coming up on the end of the show here, but just to wrap it up for everyone, if we can go around the table, if Avery, you can share with us anything that you think NFT brands need to know about brand safety before we head off.
Yeah, for sure. I think my number one recommendation would be for every brand to start doing their homework. The Sandbox just touched on this, but I think that many brands are curious. A lot are toe dipping. Some are jumping in, but before any toe dipping, I always recommend that people actually put themselves in the shoes of the consumer. Really go ahead and set up your first wallet, get your first NFT, go to experience, your first time in Decentraland. So I think that helps brand owners really understand what this experience is like for consumers. So you can start to think about things like brand safety. There's so many amazing playbooks and things that we can take forward from a brand safety perspective from what we, as marketers have developed in Web 2. But I think with Web 3, really the right way to, even begin the journey is by putting yourself in the shoes of the consumers and doing your homework on this space.
And Laura, you're dabbling too. You're doing that with the NFTs yourself. So what do you say about what's the ultimate protection right now?
The best thing you can always do is, as kind of what Avery said, do your homework and try before you buy. And if you make a mistake like I did, it's not the end of the world. It's very much like you're going to have to try this. You're gonna make some mistakes, but once you learn and do your homework, you're gonna be in an awesome situation for trying it out for your actual brand.
And Albert, with the complex land and those sort of projects, what's the message to brands trying in that route?
Yeah, I think brands really got to lock in what their mentality is going to be in the metaverse, because it's a totally different universe. They need to spend the time doing diligence around that, because how you show up on a social network versus how you show up at in a retail store, very different from an environment where you can hyper connect with individuals at scale. And I think that's very different. I think that's what brands are going to have to start to really sort of lock down, is like, who are we in the metaverse that's very consistent with where we've been as a corporation or as the brand identity now, and who do we want to be? I think there's a massive opportunity for brands to almost recreate themselves. We could see the rebirth of brands that were almost left for dead, because the metaverse will allow them to explore a new identity and connect with ways they just couldn't through other channels. But I think that's where they're going to have to really sit down and decide is who are we and who are we to that ultimate consumer in that environment.
And Matthew, before I do let you go, with all the watchers now who will be out on Sandbox, who will be able to maybe help keep the place and moderated, do brands need to know anything about the moderators so they don't run afoul of them?
No, they don't. It's going to be something that's going to be managed by us. And we really view moderation as I was describing before. We have a decentralized approach to it, but also we have a centralized approach to it. And this is also what really sets us apart from other metaverse who are maybe 100% decentralized today, maybe a little bit more, I wouldn't say less safe, but a bit more like the Wild Wild West. So, but to answer your question, no, it's something we manage inside the company.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining me. It was a fascinating talk, and I hope you come to our next one, because we'll hopefully be doing more of this.
Thank you so much for having us. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Well, thank again to everyone. I am Garrett Sloan, your host today, and thank you again to our sponsor, Voice. As always, thank you to our AdAge live stream dream team, Lauren Ciardio, Arabella Breck, Anna Sakula, for all their work on this digital event. And thank you to my fellow AdAge moderators, Erica Wheelis and Brian Bonilla. Stay up to date on Web3 news at adage.com. And we're just a few weeks away from our conference on e-commerce, where we'll be hearing from brands including Neiman Marcus, Home Depot, Walmart, and Abercrombie. Get your ticket at adage.com/next retail. Thank you again.